Hello, welcome everyone. This is New Hampshire Peace Action's Peace and Justice Conversation Series online. I'm Will Hopkins, Executive Director. If you are new to New Hampshire Peace Action, we educate, mobilize, and organize to build a more peaceful and just future for all. We envisage a future where international relations are based on cooperation instead of competition and conflict, and where mutual benefit and shared security lead to a more peaceful and just global community. So almost 2 years ago now, the corona pandemic spurred us to start this every other Monday conversation series as a way to continue our public education work. And we found it so effective that so many people are interested in talking about the issues surrounding peace and justice that we decided that this is going to continue on indefinitely. The conversation series is intended to help us engage and sort out how to make the changes we've been yearning for and many of us have been working for decades. In the spirit of understanding and respect, we'd like to acknowledge that we are doing our work here in New Hampshire on the traditional ancestral homeland of the Abenaki, Pennacook, and Wabanaki peoples, past and present. We honor with gratitude the land and waterways that they have been stewarding throughout the generations. So tonight we are delighted to have Jehann El-Bisi. Dr. El-Bisi is a member of Peace Action. She has volunteered for us, and she has agreed to come on for Indigenous Peoples Day to talk a little bit about the struggles around lives with dignity for the people who inhabited this land before Europeans came, and about the struggle to recognize that with Indigenous Peoples Day. And you've all read her bio, so I'm not going to read it off to you, but I am going to say that I'm very excited to hear what Jehann has to say. Someone I've known for a good handful of years and definitely admire, and I'm excited to hear it. So Jehann, thank you so much for being here. Go ahead and take it away.
Thank you so much, Will, and thank you, Doreen, and thank you, Peace Action, and welcome all of you from Peace Action joining tonight and anyone from everywhere joining live. It's really wonderful to see you all on the Zoom screen, so thank you so much for coming. I'd like to begin by thanking the Indigenous people of all of the Americas and the world who have survived over 500 years of colonization. I had the honor and privilege of being at Indigenous Peoples Day in Newton this morning, and it filled my heart with joy to see all of my brothers and sisters gathered in the real nature and under the beautiful sky and the sun, and having and exchanging loving warmth and embraces. And it is a testimony and an honor to hear the prayers and acknowledging that the joy and the resilience in this survival is very present and beautiful and inclusive and inviting of all of you into the fold of the celebratory aspects. And so thank you.
Oh, Jehann, I'm not sure if you can hear me, but your internet has stopped working for a minute. Hopefully she'll reconnect in a second. Let's just give a few moments for the internet to hopefully come right back on. Doreen, you want to shoot her a text?
Will?
Oh, we got you. You're back.
I'm sorry. So I did pay extra for high quality Wi-Fi, so I hope
that's a one-off problem.
Okay, so
jump back in.
You can hear me now?
We can, thank you.
Good. Okay, sorry folks. So what's happening is I'm actually in Boston, so I'm not in my home setting. And so hopefully the Wi-Fi will be secure. Like I said, there was an option, so hopefully it's working out. So I have a presentation to share with you that will include video clips. I just want to begin with Akwene Masa al-Kair, Mitakoye Yasin, Miniwachoni, Twa Ina, Chik Tayetu, Washte, Beskarma, Yamukasuk, and Shante Washte Chizape Kishto. I greet you with my hand in my heart. I'd like to honor the different languages that represent some of the strands of my genetic ancestry on my mother's and father's sides, and to get us to think about just for a moment the way language informs our ways of thinking and our ways of being in the world. And I'm going to throw a lot of information at you all. So please know that you can always contact me after this talk, and I am happy to share resources. I'm happy to share the presentation, the slideshow. I'm big on sharing information. I think it's a beautiful time. I think technology is a tool that is being used and so much information is available. So please don't feel overwhelmed. I would like to cover a lot. And so we're going to jump right into it, Will. I'm going to present you with a slideshow, and then afterwards, I'd like to share some resources with you all. So hang on for the ride. We're in it together. And with that, I'm going to go to the screen share now, Will. Okay, so thank you all I can't see any of you, so I'm just, that's a little tricky. Is there a way to see everybody, Will, the way we were before while I'm showing the screen?
I don't think so. Unfortunately, you're gonna, we could change the view to
I could see you before.
Standard view. If you go up to the top right-hand corner of your screen and go to standard view, you'll be able to see a few of us. It won't be all of us though.
Okay, well, that's okay. I'm just going to take you all through it. Okay, so this is Peace and Justice Conversations for Indigenous Peoples Day, celebrating resilience in the form of being here through 500 years of colonization, and resilience through the art, and resilience through the water protectors, resilience all over the country in the form of youth art movements and front lines of resistance. I'm going to present you with 3 hashtag topics, and just quickly for people who don't know, hashtag before the word. So here you see hashtag land back, hashtag MMIWG, and hashtag stop line 3. The hashtag, this is in social media, and in particular in Instagram. When you go and you put that hashtag, you can look up that topic. And I want you all to know that even if you're not in those social media formats, there is lots of beautiful work being done by the youth and educating people. There is so much information. There's lots of misinformation also, so just be discerning. But there is wonderful movement through these formats. I always dedicate my talks to LaDonna Brave Bull Allard, who is a mentor and inspiration to me, who passed over the past year. And moving forward, I'm going to take you very quickly through some definition of terms, just so we're all having that context with which to understand some of the things we'll be discussing this evening. Climate change, we can somewhat agree on, this is a scientific conclusion that human activities result in a rise in atmospheric temperatures affecting weather and negatively impacting communities. Environmental racism are the policies of locating the industrial activities that pollute and contribute to climate change in the communities of the most vulnerable and poorest segments of the larger population with intentionality. Why do I say it's with intentionality? Well, we can look to examples on the ways that historically Indigenous people have been treated and are currently being treated still today in the world. One such example are the forced relocation of Indigenous peoples onto reservations. And if we focus in and just zoom in on the Black Hills in the Lakota Sioux Treaty territories, they are used by the United States government for uranium extraction, which brings me to the pillars of peace actions, missions, and goals with non-nuclear proliferation and anti-nuclear militarization. And so the uranium mining is really the feeding the monster of the nuclear chain. So it connects very directly. So always, always Indigenous issues are inextricably linked to our future and our past and present. They leave the open uranium mining pits, causing cancer, birth defects, death, and destruction from radiation exposure. I know many people who are suffering the ill health effects and death and destruction. One person that you could look up is Teoksin Ghost Horse. Some of you may have remembered hearing him speak for Peace Action. He is a survivor of this. Also, Charmaine Whiteface. So environmental racism is genocide, and it is continuing and it is ongoing today. What do I mean when I say genocide? So if we look at the meaning of the word genocide, and I'm bringing this up for a particular purpose because it's my interest in sharing something that was passed in the state of Massachusetts in the legislature that I'd like you all to think about. So genocide was coined by the Polish lawyer Raphael Lemkin in the 44 book Access Rule in Occupied Europe, consisting of, I don't have to read all of this to you, but the Greek prefix genos, meaning race or tribe of people, suffix side, meaning killing. Lemkin developed this term partly in response to Nazi policies of systematic murder of Jewish people during the Holocaust, but also in response to previous instances in history of targeted actions aimed at the destruction of particular groups of people. Later, Lemkin led the campaign to have genocide recognized and codified as an international crime. I want to make it very clear to you all this evening that, and this is difficult for me, but I don't understand how anybody couldn't wrap their mind around it, but it is genocide. I refer to what is going on in Indigenous lands across the world as genocide. So in Massachusetts, they passed the Genocide Act, and it's a mandate to add genocide instruction into the school curriculum. And there is some way that adding Indigenous education into the curriculum that they mentioned in a particular article in a local paper that they were not considering what has happened to the Indigenous peoples of North America and South America as genocide. And so I just want to make my position on that very clear, that I do refer to it as genocide, and it needs to be taught and it should be added into the curriculum, because only teaching the truth is the way through into a future where we have a world together in peace. So this is just an example for you to see how you might look up information for yourselves using some of these very youth-dominated social platforms. And I don't want to say just youth-dominated, but they've done profound work. It's just incredible. You can really go down the rabbit hole and find some beautiful examples of their work for their nations. So land back, what are we talking about? Values and historic and present concerns. So this is an example of what you would see there. You would see this person is Think Indigenous, Treaty Number 6 territory where they're from, and they've done this nice little graphic on colonialism 101, dispossession of the land, and then dependency. And so creating situations where you take people, forcibly remove them from their land, create dependency for food, take away food sovereignty, and then have ongoing oppression. And this is just what we just said. And this is what you would find typically under a graphic, and usually and most times under lots of these, there is very excellent information that's accurate and important to be surveying. And so what is the way forward for us all? It's through the environmental justice movement, and that is the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, with respect to the environment. So what I found out in Standing Rock and being there was the beauty of the international community coming together and going forward. There's room for everyone. It's a beautiful way to get involved. Land-back values include land and water protection, human rights for all, and in particular, honoring the treaties. And so I'm going to show you this clip from a television show that I recommend. It's airing on Hulu called Reservation Dogs, and this is a clip.
What's that mean?
What, honey?
See the graffiti on that sign?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I think it says land back, doesn't it?
What do you suppose it means?
Well, I reckon the Indians did it.
Well, sure it did. But I don't understand. You mean the whole damn thing? They want the whole damn thing back?
Well, I suppose so.
That's just not possible. I can see some of it back. You reckon that's what they mean? Some of it back? Or all the damn thing?
I mean, the whites did kill an awful lot of them and took the land. So America ought to be ashamed of itself.
Well, they got the casinos. I hear they get paid $1,000 a month just to be an Indian.
Will you quit being a shit ass?
Well, that's romantic.
This ride is not fun anymore, and no, they don't. And whatever they get, they deserve.
Well, let's not get into a political discussion here. Let's just enjoy the Sunday drive.
No, I am part Indian.
Yeah, and I'm part millionaire.
Yeah, you wish.
What's that?
Well,
No, that.
That's the whole white folks did this. Want to put them in the trunk and we can make backstrap from it?
For real?
Yeah,
I swear, if you get blood on my grandma's car,
we'll put a tarp under it. We got one in the back, right? Bucket the legs. Open the trunk. Gross.
Okay, so I can't see you all. I wish I could. Let me see if I can maneuver to see. Because it's hard to talk to you. I hope you can. Are you still there, Will? Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, we're here. We can hear you.
Okay, good. Okay, sorry. This is just, I look forward to the day we can be back in person together. So that show, that clip is just, there's so much in it and I won't get stuck with it, but I really encourage you to watch the show because there are so many films now. There are so many books. There's so much out now. In terms of Indigenous writing and creative media. And I just wanted to share the clip with you because it can address some of the fears that come up, with this idea of land back and people misunderstand it. So with the history of land back, you have dispossession and theft of land and land grabs and gold rush, eminent domain, doctrine of discovery, and the solution really lies in honoring the treaties. So I encourage you all to do your own work and look up honor the treaties and what does it mean. And I will get into some of the different aspects of what that means. So some of the questions that come up in fears, do settlers have to move? The short answer is no. If land back were fully realized, do settlers have to leave the continent? What land can settler descendants live on? Displacement and erasure are not indigenous or core values of the land back movement. However, if violent, extractive, and capitalistic goals are what settlers desire, then it leaves little room for them to be moving forward with land back movement. So this is just, I encourage people to do some reading. There's an excellent online journal called Briar Patch. They have some particular issues that are dedicated to better understanding the land back movement, following some of the policies that Canada is enacting to have some financial reparations being directed back to First Nations people through land ownership, and not in the form of taxes or donations, but an actual mechanism that is enforced to start bringing some financial reparations. And again, honoring the treaties is significant because then it's acknowledging their sovereignty over the land that they have. And if settlers are on treaty territories and they're not cooperating with the peace and the vision for peace for all to live harmoniously together in peace, well, then that's where the idea comes that they should leave treaty land. So many terms. So this settler, so we have settler colonialism, and then I'm sort of leaning into the future with settler post-colonialism, because we can talk for a long time about the past, but I really like to focus on present movement and where are we going forward together. So with settler colonial vocabulary, there are two tiers where movements happening and changes coming into society that we can see that's tangible. There's changing landscape and vocabulary in scholarship and the academic role in maintaining acceptable parameters for decolonization. And when I say maintaining acceptable parameters, I say that because I've developed courses and attempted to re-engage in academic settings, but I find that there tends to be, I'll say, focus on archaeological, anthropological areas of study. And I'm interested in activism. So my course and the fight to re-enter the academy as an activist has been a long struggle, but that's a whole nother conversation. I'd like to honor the youth who are leading the movements and the younger cadres of water protectors that are on the front lines everywhere and doing so much work. And so then you have the grassroots feeding into decolonization and informing the wider public of ways we can move forward together with a more loving, inclusive paradigm. Okay, getting into the second area here, missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, that acronym there, MMIWG, and some of you are, probably most of you are familiar with the red handprint on the women's faces. And I wish I met her before I put together the slide presentation, but I met a phenomenal, I have no words for how talented this artist is, who was showcasing her paintings at Indigenous Peoples Day. She started by painting a victim. It went viral. And then she started receiving a flood of requests for paintings of victims from victims' families. And so I'll make her information available. So if it seems like I'm moving fast, it's because there's a lot to cover and I'd really like to keep the space open for conversation. So moving quickly through this because there's a lot. So just bear with it and we can have more conversation. So statistically, we know that in an organization that you can find information also that's pretty substantial with grounded statistics, the Native Congress of American Indians is a powerful organization that hears proposals for change in Indian country and legislation through tribal governments. They have annual meetings that cover contemporary issues in Native America. Missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls is on the agenda currently. They're actually having meetings, I believe, this week, the 7th through the 14th. And many nations have passed laws reflecting the Violence Against Women Act that was reauthorized under the Obama administration 2013. And also there was a reauthorization in 2021. The tribal courts, there were barriers to prosecution of non-Native perpetrators of violence against Indigenous women and girls. And there was a recent decision, United States Cooley decision. The person to look up here would be Mary Catherine Nagel. Tribal officers having the right to detain non-Native offenders in a unanimous decision it made in 2021. So basically, just to explain what happened. So prior to 1978, I think it was called the Stephanie Rule, but I apologize. I don't have those notes available right in front of me. But there was a decision made by the Supreme Court that took away the tribal court's rights to detain or prosecute non-Native people for crimes committed on reservations and or off of reservations. And from 1978 to just recently, this past summer, I believe July was 2021, I think was when this recent decision. So that was restoring the right of tribal governments to prosecute. But there's still a lot of problems with that because they can only prosecute certain crimes. Oh, so the slide was ahead of me. I'm sorry. So here's the information here. So I'm not going to read all this again. I think I explained what we were getting to here. So yeah, please look up Mary Nagel in the Supreme Court 78 and Cooley 2021 decision. It really impacted the number of crimes. As you can imagine, it just opened up a whole floodgate of opportunity for Indigenous women and girls to be targeted for crime. And all of this is a direct legacy of colonization. It's just a continuation. And then there was an interesting conversation that was raised by Mary Nagel in the context of defunding police or reimagining policing. Lots of the murders that take place and occur off reservation, there's the long-standing police violence against women and people of color. And so local law enforcement in places where these crimes are committed off reservation, state law enforcement and local law enforcement is not prosecuting or pursuing investigations. And what I really want you all to know is this is not only happening out west or somewhere far away from here. This is Jalasia Finkley, and she's from Mashpee. She's Wampanoag. She is not someone I know personally, but I have friends connected to her, and it is right here. It's a terrible story. She was abducted and brought from New Bedford, Massachusetts to Florida, kidnapped against her will. Her abductor was shot and killed in a parking lot in Florida. And I'm going to proceed to show you a news clip just to bring it home.
What is believed to be the body of a pregnant Mashpee teenager has now been found in Florida. 18-year-old Jalasia Finkley has been missing since October 20th. Today, police in Fellsmere, Florida, found a body in a field. They say it appears to be Finkley's body and that this appears to be a murder. Earlier this month, the suspect in the case was shot and killed while U.S. Marshals in Florida tried to take him into custody.
Moving forward, this is, I have to put an emotional block up while I talk because it's incredibly difficult material, and I don't in any way can see the slide. It's very tiny, but this is some of the names of the thousands of missing and murdered Indigenous women. My internet is unstable. It says on my screen. I don't know if
we had a little flicker. It was
Okay.
about 5 seconds where we couldn't hear you, but you came back in.
Okay, great. So it's epic. And when I spoke to the artist this morning, and wait till you see her paintings, I'll give you her information. It's really important to see her work. It should actually be shown up in New Hampshire somehow near you in person. It's mind blowing. It gives you the chills. But if you can imagine, she's painting every day. She gets a request from someone's family to paint their daughter or mother or sister. We're moving on, but not without respect to those who have lost their lives. Stop line 3. This I see as a nexus. I'd like to refer you to the 7 teachings of the Anishinaabe, because stop line 3 is the front line. I'm sure, again, first of all, I don't know everything. There may be many of you that know more than me, but I'm just trying to expose you to the front line where I've been experiencing so much conflict of wanting to be there and then not being there. But this is in Minnesota. And what's different about this site of resistance in this pipeline coming down from the tar sands through Minnesota, it's that it has 65 crossings. So in Standing Rock with the crossing with the DAPL, the Dakota Access Pipeline, there was the one crossing, but imagine 65 river crossings with decaying and old and yeah, well, I could get stuck here, but I'm not going to. So moving forward, I'll play this clip. Oh, did I jump ahead? What happened? Sorry. Something's happening, Will, sorry. Let me go back.
Try using the left arrow key. You can usually go back that way.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Oh, I don't know why it's jumping. Maybe it doesn't.
Looks
want-
like that wasn't actually linked to a video.
It was, because I checked it
Okay.
this morning. It is, but there it goes. Sorry, folks. Oh, okay. Can you see it if I go to the small like this?
Yeah, that worked. It was playing, so.
Sorry.
The purpose of today's hearing is for oral argument on the proposed Line 3 replacement project.
From Enbridge's perspective, this is their largest project in company history, and everything is riding on this. And then on the other side, landowners, Anishinaabe people, youth, all these people that are hunters, fishers, that are looking at a tar sands line going through untouched places, are talking about sending tar sands through the headwaters of the Mississippi River and through all of its treaty territory along the way in 41 wild rice watersheds.
Enbridge is asking you, the commission, to issue a certificate of need and a route permit, which will relinquish through eminent domain 340 miles of northern Minnesota to a private company. Each of these 340 miles represents the livelihoods, homes, rights, clean water, culture, climate change impacts, and people of Minnesota. The state of Minnesota is being asked to give up something more valuable than the price of this pipeline.
Replacement of Line 3 is the responsible thing to do, both for our communities and for the environment.
Enbridge has, consistently throughout this process stated that it cares deeply about the citizens of Minnesota and that this is about job creation. This is about replacing an aging line, an over 60-year-old pipeline that is currently leaking. If that were all there were to it, I think that we'd be in a very different situation. But what we're looking at instead is Enbridge needing to expand the industry. We're looking at oil that is not meant for Minnesota markets. It's meant for foreign economy.
For the tar sands producers, the need is to get more oil to the oceans. So there are 3 pipelines out there, not just this one. There's the Keystone XL project. There's the Trans Mountain Expansion Project. There's this one. They are all designed to get as much oil to the coast as possible. The survival strategy is to get access to some kind of global markets that are supposed to make up for the lack of demand in the United States. So what gives? If the demand is dropping, if the likely production is dropping, why is there this need for a pipeline?
Tribal lives are at the greatest risk of an oil spill. That's environmental racism. That's why I'm here. I hope people in Minnesota wake up. I hope a lot of frontliners wake up and warriors wake up and they join us.
We want to shut this pipeline down.
Okay, I'm going to move to the next one so we can get to conversation.
Thanks, Jehann.
Sorry.
Several years ago, we had a similar project, smaller scale in this community. It completely tore our community apart. The pro-pipeline, the anti-pipeline people, families are torn apart by it. And so that's one issue, is that it causes division in the community. Another issue is that they're transient workers. So there's like man camps and people who don't live in this area. It's a danger to our community. There's, sex trafficking, prostitution, and drug use. All kinds of things come with these projects.
Essentially what a man camp is, it's a hotel all on one floor. So what you're having is you're bringing a small little city somewhere. Most of the man camps are always located in rural settings. These guys work all types of shifts. Some guys go out at 2:30 in the morning, some guys at 10:30 in the morning. There's never any normal here.
We're not selling our souls for a barrel of oil. We just aren't going to do that.
I work and have to face week after week trafficked youth, children. This is a dire concern for Minnesota. And to counter something said by Enbridge, man camps are an issue, yes, but when you disperse these workers into our campgrounds and our hotels, you are making it more difficult for our law enforcement officials to stay on top of it. You are putting our children at further risk.
Every day there's another woman from another tribe, mother of 5, mother of 3, grandmother, niece, daughter. Every single day, one goes missing.
Girls are so afraid of getting stolen and raped and never found again. You know, we have this huge problem in our country of missing and murdered Indigenous women.
There's 2 more, and then we can move to talking.
If we want our children to live in a clean, toxic-free world, we're going to have to step up and show them how it's done.
Everyone here is fearless. There's courage here. There are warriors here, from all walks of life. Not just Indigenous people. It's not just an Indigenous fight. Bring that element of nonviolent direct action.
It doesn't look too good with the pipeline moving right behind her while she's getting arrested. Whoa! Explain why. Someone's just being arrested right now. He's being grabbed by 2 officers.
Law enforcement is here to uphold the law of corporations and private property because they have money, they have nice vests, they have logos. We don't have money, so we're here because this is our only option.
Number 2, truth. Truth is something that we have to learn to express. It's got to come through our hearts and our chests, not so much through our brains when we stress. You can find truth on a quiet night. You can also find it in the wild rice.
We believe that we are our ancestors' prayers emotionally. With us, the Ojibwe, what we're protecting is the wild rice, the food that grows in water.
This is what a sustainable economy looks like, thousands of years of rice. Nobody else in the world has thousands of years of the same economy but us. How about we hang out with it for another 1,000 years?
Okay, and so some of you may know that this is Myron Dewey, so dedicating this in his honor. He did so much work in Standing Rock to document using drones, the violence. But I also want to leave you with some positive thoughts. So going forward, there is so much opportunity. It doesn't, you know, imagine that for 500 years, and if you look at the boarding school, the history of the mass graves that are now being exposed in the boarding school, the legacy of violence and genocide occurring by using education. Education is a critical place where we have to bring the truth of the history and the truth of the present into the forefront of conversation. It doesn't mean that people who are Christian or Catholic have to now become Indigenous. That isn't the idea at all. The idea is respect. It's about mutual respect, coming together to create the peace and the world that we know we can make. I myself am running into learning about the ways in which the solar development of solar power and wind power and quote unquote green energy, how a lot of that has been apprehended by capitalist pursuits as well. So I've been really doing a lot of work trying to learn more about energy transition, and I feel that we are in a state of emergency, but we can all come together, and reaching out and listening to your Indigenous brothers and sisters is a way to bring us into a future where we have a future. So I really want to thank Peace Action, and thank you all for allowing me to go over the time here a bit, but we still have 20 minutes, it looks like, for questions. I want to make sure that I get the names to you for you to follow. One is Chase Iron Eyes has a program on Wednesday evenings on Facebook, Chase Iron Eyes, and it's called Cut to the Chase. And his program, he covers lots of contemporary issues, lots of good information, and it's usually both it's truth being told, and understanding that coming out of 500 years of colonization and resistance is not, we're not going to come to something perfect overnight. And the number of Indigenous artists working to bring love, I wanted to call attention. There was a mural recently painted right after the Truth and Reconciliation Day in Canada. And then they won't disclose who, but a development project came in and literally covered up this mural with brick. It just highlights how there's so much further to go. So please, whatever your work in life in your communities is, please open the space to
Well, looks like we lost Jehann for another moment, so I'll take this opportunity as she's reconnecting to kind of give the ground rules for Q&A. If you would like to be recognized, you can do that by putting an asterisk in the chat, or by using the hand raise function on Zoom. And if you would like to type your question in the chat, I'm happy to read those off as we go. Jehann, are you back with us? All right, folks, bear with us just a minute. This is our third internet difficulty. The other two resolved within a few seconds. So let's just give her a moment. Jehann, you back with us yet?
I see you and I hear you.
Now we can hear you.
Oh, I don't know where the thing left off, but I was just basically saying thank you and please connect to Indigenous people everywhere.
Great. Cool. So let's jump into Q&A. While we've got you, we've got about 16 minutes. So like I said, folks, feel free to put your questions in the chat, or if you want to ask a question yourself, you can use an asterisk in the chat or use the hand raise function on Zoom. We'll give a second for people to potentially type in.
Thanks, Will.
Do you have an estimate? I saw the numbers in your presentation were shocking about the numbers of missing women and girls. How many per year is that?
So I don't know about per year, but what I'm starting to understand it was in terms of percentages. So with, let's say, and I don't know if this is accurate. So say Native American population is less than 2% in a given situation. Statistically, it's more than 10 times the amount. It's disproportionate to any other quote unquote ethnic racial group. It's 10 times more prevalent. And this is directly emanating out of the legacy of colonization and racism in the country. It's epidemic, and it requires really vigilant attention from all communities.
It's horrifying. Thank you for sharing it. Doreen, go ahead.
Jehann, you had talked about an artist doing murals.
Oh, yes, I want to give you her name. Hold on.
Yes.
This is really important. She is phenomenal. She actually lives about 10 minutes away from me, which I'm really thrilled about. So I'm going to show you an example of one of her paintings. I don't know if you can see that, but it's just her, it's incredible. So if you go to NAYANAARTS.com, Nyana Lafond Arts, So I'm going to hold that card up for you. Sorry, so you definitely get the information because she is incredible. Can you see it?
Yeah, and Doreen's put the link in the chat as well.
Beautiful.
Who are interested.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, this is just one of huge acrylic paintings that she does by hand, not computer generated. And would love to see her supported. She said she's painting to 100, and then I think she said passing the torch because she can't manage the requests. That's how many girls and women are dying.
We were talking a little bit before about Indigenous Peoples Day, and didn't come into your presentation much. Can you talk about both, why maybe Columbus Day is something that progressive groups in particular are not, but more and more the general public are not seeing as something worthy of celebrating, and why Indigenous Peoples Day is the thing that ought to take its place in October?
I think that Indigenous people value the values of Indigenous people and the survival and resilience. And in the context of great change and what we're faced with the climate and everything, that leaning back into the principles and values of Indigenous culture would be a really wise idea right now. These values of colonization have gotten us where? So I, for example, I don't think that it's a good idea that there is the keeping of Columbus Day and Indigenous Peoples Day. It's like, just let the murderer go already. Let it go. Just let it go, and let's go forward together into a world we can create. It doesn't, I mean, what are you holding on to? I think that anyone who wants to, well, he's an historical figure. I mean, he cut off babies' heads, then they played soccer with them. What are you, come on now. Where are we putting our attention? So I don't mean to be overly simplistic. I will admit to you my naivete that I sometimes see the world overly optimistically. As you all know I present some very heavy information, but that's because I really believe in acknowledging the truth while also cultivating within ourselves the strategies to uphold ourselves as joyful beings on this planet at this time. So I believe we have the capacity to do both: bear witness to the truth, bear witness to the past, bring the healing, because reconciliation, reparations have to happen. And the way to do that is to sit in here. And I fortunately had some international experiences with people who are survivors of the Rwanda genocide, who really modeled for me the incredible capacity of the human heart to forgive. But I also don't say, hey, forgive and forget and move on. There has to be space for where people are with their pain. I've been grappling with these issues educationally for over 30 years. I have been exposed to the true history of Native America from my mother since the age of 9, very dramatically, like reading Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee at age 10. So there are ways where, for me, I have a fluidity and a comfort with it all. And I encourage you all. Oh, and just to say, I have a message to you from Joan Avant Tavares. She's the former tribal historian from the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe. She's my adopting mom. After my parents died, she adopted me. And boy, she likes to scold me and tell me what to do. Right up to this morning, she said, you tell all those beautiful people not to get stuck in places of feeling guilty for the sins of their ancestors. Like, forget it. You're in a different space, in a different time. And she really likes to convey that. So I promised her I would share that with you all. So with regard to Indigenous Peoples Day, it's like, let's move forward, like, yeah, throw those statues in the river, get rid of it. Let's move on. We have the great beauty, we have so much to share and offer, and we can remake this world how we really want it to be healthy for everyone. So I think Indigenous cultural values are integral, or I'm not saying the word properly, but they bring the beauty forward, and you can keep your culture and embrace those principles, right? So it's not like some reverse assimilation or something like that. It's just sort of moving with the beauty and moving forward and caring for this earth. And I know that Winona LaDuke has been working tirelessly out there to stop line 3, and it's emotionally gripping front line at this time, because they're really asking Joe Biden's administration to acknowledge this and to really do the right thing here. And so it's political and challenging, but there isn't so much luxury of time to mull these things over. There's a great current of love, go to the gatherings, go to the powwows. When they announce an Indigenous event, just go. I mean, you will be met, you will be welcomed. And some people are in places of great pain, and we can sit and hold space for that. So I personally think, I was saying that I'm embarrassed to admit this. I'll just say, I thought Indigenous Peoples Day was now a national holiday. Like, I thought last year it was Columbus Day and this year it was Indigenous Peoples Day. And I got all excited, and I got in the car to go to Newton and I thought, Indigenous Peoples Day, this is great. Like, I thought the change happened quickly and it was beautiful. So we have a long way to go. But I celebrated Indigenous Peoples Day today. And I really feel that it has to be Indigenous Peoples Day every day. I was talking with some of my colleagues. There's lots of calls for us to talk during the month of October and around this time, but invite us in December, January, February, March, April. There's a lot of information to cover. There are so many ways that we can bring this into the schools and bring the information to kids. I got in trouble for showing the series 500 Nations to fifth graders. They wanted to see it. They wanted to understand the true history of Native people. And I picked out some of the films that were appropriate for the topic we were looking at. And I'm sorry to say, it was really shut down. And I won't go there. It's a long story. But there are so many innovative ways of bringing the issues forward, and it makes the community safer for everyone. It really does bring shared security. Shared security, that's a Quaker document and we walked with it, but really the concept of shared security is really a reflection of those traditional Indigenous values. And having experienced them culturally myself up close and personally, there's a loving presence. It's a divine loving presence, not to over romanticize it. Of course, there's lots of different variances and tribal variances, etc. I don't mean to lump it all into this thing, and there's so much, but going forward, Indigenous Peoples Day, I think, is really important. And I think it's important to reach the people that cling to Columbus Day. Like, we can't, like, we're losing something if we let go of that. It's important to honor people's fear, right? Because fear is dangerous. And so I like talking to people who are even angry. I accept the challenge.
Thanks. Steve, you had a question?
Yes, I was just wanted to say that it seems like New Hampshire seems to be so far behind the rest of the country. We live very close to the Vermont border, and I've noticed that they do much more. One thing, they call it Indigenous Peoples Day and not Columbus Day. The other thing is I noticed that the Munisqua school district did have school today, and their purpose was to teach what the Abenaki Indians their culture was like. And living very close to the Canadian border, I noticed how much the Canadians have done. Their Indigenous Peoples Day was in September. And they spent a whole day in their radio broadcasts, at least, with the music, the culture, and understanding. We've got a long ways to go.
In organizing, some people, when I mentioned that I organize in New Hampshire, they will muse that it is, they'll say something along the lines of, way down south up north.
The deep north, Will.
Yeah, the deep north, yeah. Well, we are about out of time, and that is the end of the questions. Other than Doreen does ask, will you have a resource sheet, or can you send a resource list
Oh,
to
yes.
Doreen that we can send out by email?
Yes, I will get a resource list for you all. Send it to Doreen and she can get it out into your listserv.
Lots of gratitude going out to you in the chat, and gratitude from me as well. Thank you so much for being here, Jehann. Really appreciate you taking the time to be here. You can stay in touch with New Hampshire Peace Action. Look us up on Facebook, nhpeaceaction.org. All of our online conversations are available under the live stream tab. You just scroll down and you'll see all of the conversations we've had will be there. And Jehann will go up tomorrow. This series will remain free and open to the public and will be live streamed. However, we do depend on donations to keep the doors open and keep doing our work. So if you feel so moved, feel free to go to nhpeaceaction.org/donate. Any last thoughts from you, Jehann, before we say goodnight?
I just want to say thank you to you all. And if any of you are interested, I have a second film, an interview with an AIM leader, an elder, Lenny Foster, and I'm happy to screen it and share it if you're interested. It is a wonderful story that he tells for the first time of his experience in Pine Ridge, 73, the 71-day siege in 73 at Pine Ridge. So, and
right.
Very grateful to be here. Thank you so much, Will.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, watch our email. I'm sure we will want to do a screening of that film and discussion on it. So keep an eye on our email listserv. It'll be in the upcoming events once we put together the details.
Thanks for putting up with the tech difficulties, and
sorry.
Thank
It was
you
a few minor pauses. I think it was didn't destroy things. Go ahead.
One last thing, sorry. If any of you want to see the whole film where those clips came from, they're on Honor the Earth website, and it's called Line 3. It's a profound film. It's 30 minutes long and tells the whole unfolding of that difficult front line.
We'll make sure that is included in the resources we send out tomorrow.
Yeah.
Good night, everyone. Thanks for joining us.